might be 5 minutes delayed. Sorry about that, but we'll come out expeditiously. And again, to repeat, I'm going to do one sweep of everybody. I'm going to assume everybody, all media in the room, have at least one question. Is that fair? Okay, so I'll just do a sweep of the RSVP list. If you're not on the RSVP list, please see Erica so you can get on the list. Otherwise, I'm not going to call you. So I'll do one sweep, just one question. A follow-up pertinent to their response is fine. A follow-up taking us in a different direction, no go.
Daryl.
So just one. Once we get through, I'll come back for a second pass because some of you may have two questions. It's somewhat bifurcated, focused on One Ohana initiative, but he will come in on the back end to do some housing updates since that's top of mind. Okay? I'm going to stick to my time even though we're starting a little bit later. All right? Anybody got anything? Nope.
Don't call me first.
Huh?
Don't call me first.
You don't want to be called first?
No.
Okay. Remember
That's
that.
my only request.
Oh, that's your only request?
Don't call.
Not his only question, but his only request.
Okay, you'll go last. Last on the first pass. Okay. Stu.
Yeah.
Stu or Audrey, you're up first.
Oh, wait. Okay, Audrey.
For Q&A. Okay, Audrey gets it. She gets the first question.
We changed the word to depository. Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. They kind of built it, you know what I mean? And, yeah, anyways. Depository. There will be a digital.
Okay.
Can you see it? What do you like?
I can see it, yeah. My eyes are, I can barely see it.
Sometimes we get
Well, that's like an embargoes.
Thanks for coming, Kevin. I was telling you, probably, I was like,
Not yet.
I think you photographed people.
Go to the housing.
Yeah, I've heard that. Oh, snap.
We had to be there like
Right.
and I hear yo-yo mom like the tell I half think dog is that you? No, the scary part was
Other than courts.
all of a sudden that was very
Yeah, it's 27.
yeah.
It's crazy down there. I mean, they're building, I mean, there's always cranes up and like literally. Oh, okay. It's basketball. Yeah. I mean, it's like totally just like, people don't think of Hawaii as being like, like quarterly as being such a massive city, but it's really. I mean, it seems like there's no crime now. Well, I mean, I don't know, when I lived in San Francisco, I'm sure there was just as much crime going on, but
There's much more here than
than any other place I lived in. That probably is. Yeah. I remember when it was the murder capital.
Ano ai ke aloha ya kako. Thank you for joining us today. In a moment, Governor Josh Green will provide updates on the One Ohana Fund and the housing plan for Maui wildfire survivors. Without further ado, it is my privilege to introduce Governor Josh Green.
Aloha. A lot to share today. We're going to bring up some slides to describe exactly what we're doing, answer questions, and the topics, as you heard from Makana, are the One Ohana Fund, which is meant to help people heal, to settle cases. You're going to hear from our experts that are going to be participating in this. And also I'm going to give you an update on where we are on housing, the people of Maui who have been displaced, because I think that has been an ongoing question, and it's critically important to us for the recovery. So here's the first slide. So what is the One Ohana Initiative and what's it meant to do? I've shared some of these pieces of information with you before, but 7 months ago, as you know, we lost 101 of our loved ones in the fire. The lives of thousands more were changed forever as people were displaced. It was hurricane force winds that spread this fire across Maui, and it was the worst natural disaster we've ever had. Now, my feeling is we have a moral obligation to help people heal. And so we're gathered now to talk about what the first phase of that healing really means. This is the One Ohana Fund. And we are coming together to attempt to help people have some resources so that they can move forward. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. This recovery fund amounts to an offer, and it's really up to people if they choose to take this offer, if it's right for them, if it's proper in their life, where they are, how they might recover. So we brought together a group of people to participate. We have combined $175 million into this fund, and it will go live on March 1st. The applications will be available to family members of those who lost a loved one, or for survivors who suffered severe injuries and were hospitalized. Phase 1 of our recovery funds, that's what this is. We will offer $1.5 million if people choose to take that. And the reason is because otherwise litigation can take a very long time. They might wait years, 3, 4, 5 years to see any resources. And I know this won't solve all of their problems or bring their heart back. I know that the distributions will only maybe help them move forward in their lives, but we want to help surviving family members to recover. And so that's what this is really about. But I acknowledge no amount of money will ever be able to address the unimaginable losses that people we care about suffered. Let's go to the next slide. This is the breakdown, okay? And I'm going to address some questions right off the bat, which I know you're going to obviously have. I felt we had to get to a place where we offered more money than many people would actually even get in a settlement, because I want to care for our people. And I also want to help them avoid large legal costs. I have experts that can talk to that now. The first contributor is $65 million from the state of Hawaii. HECO has put up $75 million, Maui County 10, Kamehameha School $17.5 million, Hawaiian Telecom 2.5, West Maui Land Company 2.5, and Charter Spectrum 2.5. And we'll give you this handout so you have all of these for your records. Next slide. So who's going to run the recovery fund, and how can we make it fair and kind to people? Well, there's someone who's been important to me as a mentor and someone in my life for quite some time, and that's Ron Ibarra. He will serve as the administrator of the fund. We also have a great deal of trust in our local bankers and banks, and we're going to humbly ask and use First Hawaiian Bank to serve as the depository. Both of these champions for us are working pro bono. People will be able to submit their application on a website that will open in just a few days, March 1st. Why Ron Ibarra? Well, he has the capacity as a former judge to understand the law. I always felt he was a compassionate person. He was a judge from the district that I represented for 14 years. And I know that he has a commitment to community. So he will be able to outreach to our family members of the victims, those that survived, and he'll be able to answer their questions, address their concerns that they have. It's important to have someone that is local who really understands the people of our state, also the people of a rural community. That's another strength that Judge Ibarra has, having been a leader from the Big Island for some time. So that is why we picked Judge. Plus, he's very good looking, so we wanted him to be a part of it. But First Hawaiian, they were the architect in many ways of how we construct a fund. The One Ohana Fund came from much of their wisdom. It doesn't, it's not lost on me that they have been very supportive of community. Also, I've worked closely with their CEO as a member of our advisory council to construct our government. It's Bob Harrison. So it's really, we're grateful that they're participating in this space, and we wanted someone independent in these spaces so that the community who may choose this settlement can feel no pressure. They can just simply have a conversation with our experts and make a decision. Now, to finance this effort, all options have been considered. I'm moving in an expedited way because of what I've learned from other states, which is many states don't settle claims for 3, 4, or 5 years. And there are a lot of elderly individuals that lost a loved one. I want them to be able to begin to move forward with their lives, to maybe care for their grandkids. That's part of why we're doing this. So we contacted our funding partners to contribute to this relief fund, and they said yes. It's quite straightforward in that way. People will sign a release if they receive this $1.5 million of compensation. But this Ohana Fund was not put together in a careless way. It follows some of the precedents that were set, for example, in the 9/11 catastrophe, the Boston Marathon bombing, and the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, just to name a few. We have been lucky to have advice from Ken Feinberg, who is perhaps the leader in these. And again, he worked pro bono for us so that we know the right approach if people choose to take it. So we've been very thoughtful about this, and our goal is to provide this relief soon for people. So the idea would be to go through their applications and to get them resources as soon as we can, perhaps late in the second quarter or at the latest early in the third quarter. We'll do all that we can to move these settlements to people quickly. so that when they make a decision about land, if they want to build a home again, if they do need to move on, they'll be able to do it. Now, there's a couple other things I wanted to share with you. People ask, and it was in the press the last day or so, why go forward today before the legislation and the legislature is done with their whole budget, waiting usually till the end of April before those kind of decisions are made? Because I have to continue to move us forward. None of this is done in a vacuum. All of it is done day in and day out because we're making many decisions every day about land, about recovery, about health care. And so we just can't wait. But I have every expectation that the legislature will see that this is compassionate and this is the right thing to do, both for the victims and their families and for the state, so that we avoid very expensive and lengthy litigation. A couple other comments. Next slide, please. The legislative package. As I speak about that, we have a lot in the legislative package this year. So there's a comprehensive set of bills, first and foremost, to protect consumers from significant increases in their energy insurance bills as a result of the fire. So that is important. It's important for all of us because if we don't address this crisis in a smart way, litigation will take us down. Costs will take us down. Companies will fail, and that will hurt all of us. So you'll see bills that we referred to as securitization. That is meant for us to have a way to survive. Another bill allows for fund generation going forward. This was the climate fee, if you will, providing the ability for us to insure ourselves against future disasters. It's very important because if we do that, it'll give us room to breathe as we settle not just this claim for people who lost their loved one, but also land and property claims. It's very important that we do that, and we're cobbling together resources. In my opinion, we should have a direct stream of revenue from travelers. It's the best way that we can connect the impact on our state from many, many millions of people to the risks that we all face because we have to use resources to create fire breaks, to protect our shoreline, to fortify our homes against fire, and so on. We also have resources there to harden the grid. Needless to say, after a fire of this magnitude, having that kind of insurance plan would make a very big difference. And finally, those kind of bills affect climate change directly. So decreasing the number of travelers while increasing revenues for us is our goal. And so I wanted people to see the shape of this. Now, I'm going to give a full address about these matters sometime in 7 to 10 days. But I will give you a little mini preface, and then I'll kind of sit down. So I want you guys to understand what we're doing here, and I want everyone to hear it statewide. The catastrophe occurred. People were displaced. We have to care for them and their families, and of course, it costs a significant amount of money. After our gentlemen speak, I'm going to come back and talk more about the housing. But what do we do in our state? We care for our families. So we're going to house them, and we're going to do all that we can to go from the first phase of recovery, which was getting people into hotels, to the second phase, which is getting everyone out into a longer-term living situation, which is less expensive and better for them. And in that second phase, many things will happen. This settlement for many of the families that lost a loved one, legislation that I just described to you, the beginnings of a plan for phase 2 of the settlement, which I believe will be heavy on land. And then in subsequent phases of the recovery, we'll begin to rebuild. We'll rebuild houses, we'll rebuild communities the way Lahaina wants us to. But that will also include restoring land back to the people of Lahaina. Moku'ula, which is a sacred place, will ultimately be restored to the people of Lahaina. And Aupua'a will reform and we'll build housing. So all of this comes together in our recovery. Hopefully, much of the cost will be borne by the federal government, who has stepped into the fray. I spoke with the president and the vice president and everyone else in government essentially last week to share with them that those who have not qualified recently for FEMA support need to be reconsidered. And there's an expert coming into town this week to help us with that. But the first step is the One Ohana initiative, and that is to help those who lost a loved one. And with that, I will pause, and then I'll come back at the end and talk about housing. Thank you.
Mahalo, Governor Green. Up next, I'd like to introduce retired Judge Ronald Ibarra.
Thank you, Governor. So why am I here? Well, one day I was out walking my dog, and I see this text from the governor. It says, you want to talk about the Maui wildfire program. And first, I thought it was a scam, because the governor doesn't text anybody on a weekend in the morning. So I waited a couple of days before I answered, and I said, how can I help? And, Hawaii has the aloha spirit. If people need help, if you can, you help. And that's why I'm here. I feel that I can help, and these people need help. So how are we doing this? The program that I'm administering is under protocol called the Maui Wildfires Compensation Plan. It's a set protocol which lays out who's eligible, and like the governor says, it's a family of people that have died and the people who have suffered serious physical injuries. And it's an alternative to litigation. It's voluntary, and let me tell you, it's better than litigation. When I was a judge for 28 years, I tried numerous civil cases. I had a 6-month jury trial with DuPont Corporation, 6 months. And after the trial, of course, the plaintiff prevailed. He said if he knew what it involved, cost, time, anxiety, uncertainty, he would not have gone through with it. Although he went through it because he was a man of principle, as he said, it was a principle. But it cost a lot, and he wrote a book. I won't say I'm not promoting a book, but as a result, he said he lost his marriage. Because it's constantly on his mind, the anxiety, the uncertainty, and the money you have to put out for the litigation costs, the discovery costs. You have to pay for depositions. You have to pay expert witnesses. And so if he had not prevailed, I don't know what might have happened to him. He's a business person in Waimea. So the Maui Wildfire Compensation Program is a good program. It's voluntary, and it helps people. Number one, it's efficient. You know what you're getting. No appeals, less expensive, quick, and allows the people that are suffering go on with their lives. And this is just one portion of the governor's program, of course. When word got out that I was appointed by the governor, some friends says, "Were you crazy? The people are upset out there." I said, "Yeah, they are. But, I'm only addressing one portion. The other assets, like the housing, the infrastructure, that's somebody else. For me, in the program, I'm addressing the loss of loved ones, the injury of loved ones." So let me tell you, as fund administrator, what I'm responsible for. Like I said, this program is governed by the protocol, which was put together by the governor's team, which included the contributors. And as the fund administrator, I'm responsible for two basic areas. Number one, managing the submission, evaluation, and settlement of death and serious physical injury claims based on the program's protocol. The program set forth, what you need to provide to the administrator for me to make a decision whether they're eligible under the program or not. This includes, in the beginning, the registration of claims review. They have to register their claims within a specific period of time, 60 days after the program kicks off on March 1st. And if their claims are eligible, they will be sent a claims review form regarding eligibility. And after they submit their claims review form with their specific documents, I review whether they qualify under the protocol. And if they're eligible under the protocol, I will send them a letter saying, yes, you're eligible if you, under the program or the part where it involves the debt, you're eligible. The pro payment rate is $1.5 million. And there's conditions, of course, before you get the 1.5 million, like you have to get a release signed, you have to get the liens addressed, and you have to get, if you're the PR and the personal representative in debt cases, you have to get the probate court appointing you as a personal representative so you can represent the estate. On the side of the serious physical injuries, I have to make a determination because the protocol says that I have to evaluate all the factors with the compassion and what they submit to me, such as their medical records, hospitalization, and what they went through in life regarding this. And I can take that all in consideration and come up with a fair and just amount. Now, when I say it's a proffered payment, meaning that they don't have to accept what I recommend. Basically, they can say, no, I think I could do better in litigation. Well, that's their choice. You know, all I want them to know is these are the factors, and I hope you consider it with your lawyer so that you can make an informed decision. So often I've seen people in my career come later on and tell me, you know, I spent a lot of anxiety, a lot of time, a lot of money. And had I known this person got this settlement, I would have joined too. So all I'm saying is if they're given everything to make an informed decision, so down the road sometime when the matter is up on appeal, if they went to litigation, 1 or 2 years later, they won't say, so I should have gone to the program. Well, you know, I hope I don't hear that. I would hope that, well, I made my choice. I knew what I was getting into, and I chose not to go through the program, but I hope they go through the program. All I'm saying, it's their choice. And it will help them move forward in healing faster and moving on with their lives. Now, in the decision regarding the claims, you know, I will, like I said, notify the claimants, and if I deny the claim or I find them they're not eligible after evaluating the documents they submit to me, I will say why. You know, I'll send them a letter and state why. And they may ask to speak with me, which I'm open to, and they can speak with me, either before or after my decision. Certainly, you know, I've been a judge and I can mentally compartmentalize things, but in this case it's different because, you know, now, you know, as a judge you have compassion too, but you're bound strictly in the black and white letters of the law. In this program, I feel that I'm more open towards addressing their needs, their suffering, and showing some compassion. And that's why one of the reasons I volunteered too, because I saw this when it's set up by the governor, and what he said is moving forward towards healing, moving forward towards their lives. I know they have other issues that they must address, but this is just one of those factors. So after I notify the claimant of the offered payment, like I said, they have certain conditions they have to meet. They have to get the release. We have to address the liens because a lot of them have medical liens, you know, whether it's Medicare or other medical liens. And we need to have a disposition from the probate court if they have a lawsuit filed, which is called good faith settlement determination. So basically, they will go to the probate court and say, this is a settlement which I propose to accept, and judge, you determine if it's a settlement made in good faith without any collusion or anything of that sort. It has to be found by the judge to be in good faith. The Maui Bar, you know, has stepped up, which they're interested in providing pro bono services to these folks that may not have lawyers. And if they don't have lawyers, at the time of the release is signed, it requires to have a lawyer, so they cannot come back and say, well, I don't understand, you know, buyer's remorse or whatever that is. So a lawyer will have to sign off on the release saying that he or she went over the release with the claimant. So after all these conditions are met, which, as you can see, is pretty simple. You know, you file your claim and online, and the website is, I think it's Maui Compensation Fund Maui.com. You file your claim online. You get the claim form for filing online. If you qualify, after a review of the claim form, to be eligible, you get a claims form. First form you get is a registration form. You get a claim form, then you submit your documentation for compensation for death or serious physical injury. After that, it's being reviewed, and we look at it. I make a determination, and I submit the decision to the claimant. And like I said, if it's ineligible, I will state why. But like you can see, it's quicker. It's a sum certain for the death cases, and it's leaves the people with less anxiety. So they're already stressed, right? As you know, so they can move on with their life. My second area of responsibility ties in with the first, is basically to provide program information, like I talked about, to the family members, someone who died and who suffered serious physical injuries. I will go on site. I will go on Maui. First Hawaiian Bank has provided an office and a staff on Maui. So I intend to go to Maui. In fact, I'm going to Maui Friday and Saturday to meet with these folks, to explain, answer questions, whether it's lawyers or the people. There's nothing surreptitious about this program. It's all transparent. Here it is. Any questions? You want in? Fine, great. You can move on. If you don't, fine too. You still can pursue your litigation option, as long as you know the pros and cons for each program, whether it's litigation or whether it's this program. And I will try to answer any of the questions. In fact, some of the lawyers have already asked me to speak with them, which I'm happy that I will be doing that, so that to clear up any confusions or misinformation. And that's what I want to do, is basically have this program going out with everybody fully informed, so that we don't have misinformation going around. And like I said, they can call me or get my office number, and I will meet with them and answer any question. I will also provide them a list of frequent asked questions, which I already have 50 from the governor's office to take with me to Maui. These are 50. These are frequent asked questions. And the bottom line is, we want to do whatever we can to help these folks move forward in their lives, and that's the Hawaii spirit, right? Aloha spirit. And like I said, it's voluntary. It's a wonderful program, and I hope that people at least ask questions and make an informed decision whether to participate or not. And so that, in a nutshell, that's the simplified version, of course. But thank you.
Mahalo, Judge Ibarra. In a nutshell, that was simplified, and I feel like we all just took a mini masterclass on fund administration, but truly we're grateful for you and your service. Up next, I'd like to welcome First Hawaiian Bank Executive Vice General Counsel and Secretary Joel Rappoport.
Thank you, Makana. Aloha, everyone. First Hawaiian Bank is committed to supporting the Maui community, giving our full support to Governor Green and the One Ohana Fund as they offer crucial assistance to wildfire victims and their families. Our connection to the Maui community, which many of our own team members and customers live in and call home, runs deep, and we continue to be here to offer support throughout their recovery. The One Ohana program provides a way for people in need who have been harmed by the wildfires to get assistance in a timely manner. And so we are pleased to do our part to help. I'd like to thank Governor Green for his leadership, as he has been so instrumental in bringing this vital program to fruition. Additionally, I want to commend the dedication of Judge Ibarra and the numerous individuals and organizations who contributed their time and resources. Thank you.
Mahalo, Mr. Rappoport. Next, I'd like to introduce Attorney Richard Sakoda, who has been representing Maui wildfire survivors.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor Green, for your bold leadership. It's much appreciated. The many families I have spoken to are seeking closure. For those who have died, healing and financial assistance for those with life-changing, serious injuries. The Maui Wildfire Compensation Program provides such an option. Will the amount of the compensation be sufficient for those who have filed a lawsuit? I don't know. Will those who have already filed a lawsuit cancel their agreement and file a potential as a claimant? I don't know. Having said that, when many families file with a personal injury law firm, there was no other option on the table at that time. So this provides an excellent option. Yesterday, a serious injury potential claimant who had signed with a personal injury firm told me she would gladly sign on as a client. Others I have spoken to will need further details, which the judge will provide, of the process and timeline before filing as an eligible claimant. Governor, I am fully committed to answer these questions for those who ask and my resources to help these clients. For many of these families, I believe that this fund will go a long way in making everything pono. Thank you.
Mahalo, Attorney Sakoda. Now I would like to welcome back Governor Josh Green to give updates on the housing plan for those displaced by the Maui wildfires.
And of course, we'll take questions on any topic related to these two large challenges. Okay, so we're now on the housing update. So 4,000 structures were destroyed by the fire. It's just a hair under. It's like 3,950 structures were destroyed. Of those buildings that were houses, 23% were homeowners that were living and they owned their home. That number was 561, I believe, and the percentage of renters was higher, 72%. It was like 1,853, and about 5% of the individuals in the community were homeless. So, what we want to do is we want to give people a clear understanding of the goal, which is to get everyone into long-term housing. So let's go to the next slide. This is an update to a previous discussion that we had, because I know a lot of the people that were at that press conference were wondering how on earth will we get to the number of long-term housing units that we need. And it has been a challenge, but we've had a lot of success. Our collective goal is to move all individuals and families who are in short-term hotels into long-term stable housing by July 1, 2024. And we're trying to move as steadily as we possibly can. The collective effort that we're talking about is the Maui Interim Housing Plan. It commits us to securing 3,000 housing units with 18-month commitments to provide stable place for households displaced by the Maui fires who are currently in the hotels. We will cover that cost. Okay, so why do we cover the cost? Because, again, we care about people, and it is very traumatic to lose your home. It's also very impactful to what happens in Maui and to the state if people end up adrift without a roof over their heads. So there's a lot of information here, but essentially let me share with you what we got today. This is number of households. We have 1,746 households still in short-term hotels. That's down from originally 3,000. Okay, so it's down, I believe, 44%. We still have a fair ways to go. There are several programs that you see there. The host family program, which was very smart from the mayor's team and CNHA. That's where people go and rent in someone else's house, $500 a person. There's non-short-term hotels, which give us some extra capacity, and long-term rentals. That's the most important one to talk about right now. So the federal government, FEMA, and our partners, we have acquired 1,517 long-term rentals. The challenge here, because if you look at those numbers, you say, okay, well, they're pretty much there. We got 1,517 long-term rentals available. About 500 of those are in the West Maui area, and about 1,000 are across the other parts of Maui, which we are trying to get everyone that wants to stay in West Maui a place. It's near their school. It's near their job. There also is the capacity to return to residence. About 110 people have returned to their houses that weren't damaged, but the roads were blocked. Now they can get back there, or there were minor repairs that were done. And then we are building ADUs, that's alternative dwelling units, and going forward, we're going to be building quite a lot. I'll break into that in a moment. We're almost at March 1st, and you can see our goals are to decompress the hotels. We still are going to need some additional housing on the West Maui side, and I will get into that in a half second. What's at question here, okay, is that FEMA will cover people who are eligible, citizens who are living in the district that were in a contract to either rent a place or own their house. Other people that we've been putting up fall into some other categories. Maybe they were COFA migrants. Maybe they were undocumented. Maybe they were homeless. Maybe they were living on someone else's lease and weren't official but had lived for years in Maui. Many of those individuals don't get covered by federal funds, which creates this discussion that we've had of, at one point it was $1 million a day. It has dropped now because we're down to about 820 families. It's still expensive, but we care about people most, and we are trying to make sure that we survive as a society. So let's go to the next slide, and I'll break this out a little bit. This is currently, and these numbers change slightly every day because some people are able to move into long-term housing away from the NCS, or the non-congregate shelters, the hotels. 1,744 as of the time of this slide, and that was 4,185 people, down from 7,996. So again, a lot of people are now into long-term housing, but we still have a ways to go. And as you can see on this slide, about 597 FEMA ineligible households remain, which we need to find them housing that's more sensible. And about 1,147 households remain that are eligible and they're waiting to move. A contract becomes available, say, on March 1st, and they get to go in. They go through the paperwork. They get approved. They do their background check and so on. I know for many it can't happen soon enough, but that's what happens. It's a process during a disaster like this. And as Judge Ibarra said very eloquently, we don't turn our backs on people. We show people the aloha spirit. We care for them. But it has cost, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Now let's go to the next slide, and I can show you kind of what we appear to be responsible for and how we're approaching this. If you see in this next slide, there were 136 individuals that were homeless, and we created a community, Pu'uhonu'o. So we spent $800,000, and we housed those who were homeless. Otherwise, their suffering is great, and their cost is even greater. We also have acquired the Hagai Institute, which is a 175-unit building, which is a mix of efficiencies and one bedrooms and so on, which we will move people into so that they're out of hotels. We've begun the process of building. I've ordered 450 houses. The approximate cost is $105 million for those houses, and we have a significant commitment from the Hawaii Community Foundation of up to $30 million. We'll finalize that number, but that helps us with the cost. And those houses, when they become available, which will take several months, 3 to 6 months still, we'll be able to move people there also. Now, why did I go to Washington, D.C. last week and meet with every single leader known to man in our country, including head of FEMA, head of the Department of Energy or their deputy, Navy, the vice president, the transportation secretary, and so on? Because we feel strongly, and they agree, that we're in this together, that we have to recover together. And would we like them to cover all of the individuals that were displaced? Of course we would. Right now, they, like I said, make that consideration from class to class to class. But as I explained to them, we have no choice. We have very little housing. We have hotels in Hawaii because of the nature of our economy and our just our community, and they understand that better now. They already have now approved the use of condominiums. They don't normally do that. That's going to decrease the number of people that are on the non-eligible list very significantly. It will at least save us $43 million. They're sending an expert this coming week who will be here for 7 to 10 days to further carve into that number, and we're hopeful that this number of 735 of households that need support will drop by another 200 or even 400, so that our costs will be much less in advance of getting people into this transitional housing program. So expect us to bring in these first 450 modular homes. We will certainly go for more. I've asked the federal government, along with Senator Schatz and Mayor Bisson, to help us build at least 1,000 units. We would build an additional 1,000 units, and then we would have a bridge to the future when we can build long-term housing. Let's go one more slide, because I haven't asked today. Now, I'm asking today for people to consider who live in West Maui to offer an additional 875 short-term rental units. And here's the offer that we're prepared to make. We will pay up to $5,000 for one-bedrooms. We'll pay up to $7,000 for two-bedroom units, up to $9,000 for three-bedroom units per month, and up to $11,000 for larger homes, four-bedroom houses. The reason for this is we would like to, as soon as possible, get the rest of the individuals, especially that are not covered by FEMA, into housing as a bridge. These would be for between 1 and 6 months. We'll make sure that the houses are well cared for, but so that these families, instead of being in a hotel at a very high cost, night over night, day over day, get into a stable situation. So I'm appealing to people. We have made great progress. Like you saw, over 1,500 units did come in. The mayor's tax plan is working very well. People don't pay property tax any longer if they participate in these programs for a period of time. For a year and a half if they already signed up. It'll be a year if they sign up now. If we do this, our costs will again drop very steeply, and we'll have enough time to drop in some of the other transitional housing. It's important. This is important. So go to helpingmaui.org/offer, helpingmaui.org/offer, and over the next essentially 2 or 3 days of this month and then all of March, I'm hoping that we will have enough houses for all of those individuals that for some reason or another did not qualify, or if there's overflow from the other program, because these would be in West Maui. We need housing in West Maui. I'm not going to dwell on this today, but I am going to reiterate that I will continue to consider the possibility of a moratorium, temporary, on short-term rentals in West Maui if we don't have enough housing for our people. If that were the case, I would do the moratorium and we would make this exact same offer. And once we filled up all of our slots for people, I would lift the moratorium. But I'm not playing around. People have been in hotels quite a long time, and it is very difficult on these extraordinary people who have survived the wildfire. So I want to thank everybody that's already participated in the program. It has been something to behold. But what governors across the country shared with me was that these kind of disasters will linger 3, 4, 5, even 10 years if you don't take action, which is why today you heard about the One Ohana Fund and a settlement offer quite early in the process so people can heal, and why you're seeing me move in an expeditious way to get this bridge so that people can get into permanent housing sooner rather than later. I know for many, they are afraid of being evicted. They're afraid of the cost in the future of housing. That's the purpose of this plan. And if the legislature will help me with some of these other pieces, we'll be able to also survive the impact of the fire on the business community, and we'll be able to settle the larger claims of property damage and so on in the coming months and years. So again, thank you guys for what's pretty detailed description of what we're doing, but I thought you were owed that. And like I said again, I will go into do a deep dive on all the pieces of the response in about 10 days. So there's absolutely no questions about how Hawaii is responding to this disaster. Thanks a lot.
Mahalo, Governor. At this time, I would like to welcome questions from the media, and we did a brief game of junk and poll before this presser, and Audrey's up.
I have a question for Governor Green.
Okay, go for it.
I'm wondering, what will happen to this fund if lawmakers don't appropriate?
The question is, what would happen to this fund if lawmakers do not appropriate $65 million?
Thank you. Like I said, I have every expectation that they will show compassion, and I this morning shared with them the details of what Judge Ibarra was describing, the details of the fund. Again, I said it before, it's the right investment in people. Now, if however, the legislature chooses not to fund the $65 million, I will have options to fund it under emergency provisions. I don't think that is the best approach because I think we are a team, and I've been describing this for quite some time. So I think when they've seen additional details, and we've answered many questions both here today and this morning, we should be okay. But let me be very direct. A governor has the responsibility to all of his or her people. I'm not going to leave anyone behind, period. You know, I will see this through, and we do have exceptional latitude under the provisions of our emergency proclamation for the wildfire if I have to use those resources.
Mahalo. Our next question, Bryce.
For Governor as well.
Okay.
I noticed the lion's share of the fund is coming from Hawaiian Electric. Why is that, and why are they not here today?
The question is regarding the lion's share of the fund is coming from Hawaiian Electric, and why?
Yeah, the question as to why they're not here, I just didn't invite any of the individual parties to this. This is partially a reflection of the lawsuits that have been filed, and in this case, it was their commitment also from the same perspective I had, which was to help people heal. The dollars are not a reflection of liability. They're right now a reflection of people's capacity to be responsible and help. They are the largest company that's involved right now. And I'll answer the second part of a question that's often asked, why are we even participating? Because we feel responsible to help people move on with their lives. That's what the state does. That's what our partners do. There will be many other partners in the second phase of the One Ohana Fund as we look at land and other resources, water, engineering. A lot of people have come together. And so I think it's important to share that. But I didn't want to put people on the spot. I'm working hard to depoliticize this whole matter. I know that it will be a question in the legal community of who is taking on liability. We're putting the settlement out there just as an option for people. And I really commend all the partners for stepping in and deciding they wanted to try to help people out sooner rather than later.
Next question, Dan Nakaso.
Thanks, Madonna. Question for Governor. What have Ken Feynman or administrators of similar programs told you are the tax and implications for somebody certainly that takes the 1.5 million, but even those that are there's going to be a sudden infusion of capital. What does that mean for the tax?
So the question is around information around other fund administrators and tax implications.
Let me get a couple words from our administrator, if he'd like. My understanding, though, is, well, first and foremost, as the judge shared, the amount of work that has to go into a settlement is far, far less than whether a person ends up in court or fighting it out for several years. So there's far less legal time that it takes, and therefore usually significantly less cost for these cases. I think that's fair to say. My other understanding is that it will be tax-free. So that's important because in settlements of loss of life, I don't believe people are taxed whatsoever. I asked that question before, and yeah, the Attorney General's reminded me that that's correct. So just for perspective, if someone did go through a lengthy trial, they might pay and need to commit 30 or 40% for their settlement. And that would mean that they would, in trial, have to get maybe $2.5 or $3 million before they could get this amount of money. It's, I know, not really about money for people, but the idea that it can be done quickly and that they can somehow move on is helpful. And I've already had 2 meetings with members of the community who lost loved ones, and for the most part, they were, it was very emotional for them and for us, and they also were very receptive to the idea of moving forward quickly.
Mahalo, Governor. Next question, Stuart Yurton.
Yes, thank you, Lieutenant. Governor, how long before you issue the moratorium on housing, on short-term housing? And then I have a follow-up to that as well.
Okay, so the first question in the first round is how long before the governor exercises a moratorium on STR, short-term rentals?
Sure. So, as we shared in one of the previous press conferences or announcements, we had a goal to make by March 1st. We made that goal, and now I have an additional goal because we need additional housing in West Maui of 850 units, and I will assess it about 3 to 5 days before the end of March and make that decision by April 1st, whether we have to proceed with a moratorium. I'm hopeful we won't. As you saw, we're actually giving very specific rates of what people will be able to get into contract with us on. There's a RAP program, which is what we've been running. We've already been doing quite a lot of this through our Department of Human Services. And we authorized an initial $17.5 million, which they haven't used yet. We need to continuously get people into these units because they're just better living spaces and they're much more affordable. So expect us to be watching these numbers come in very quickly. This is the first people are hearing about this in West Maui, and I'm just trying to be very transparent and direct. If you're out there in West Maui and you have a short-term rental, or if you're amongst that majority of people that own short-term rentals from across the country, 52% of the people who have short-term rentals in our state are from the mainland, please hear me loud and clear. We need you to help support our recovery, and we will pay you that market rate for your short-term rentals on a month-over-month basis until we can house all our people in more permanent housing.
So you're looking at the end of March?
Yes. Yeah, 5 days before the end of March, I hope to address you guys again and give you an update on whether or not we have enough units. Do you have another question, to follow up?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
What about longer term? People often say a couple of issues with longer term. What about after the 12 months? And then what about unintended consequences of paying so much for these and driving up the cost, the market rate of the cost of housing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we're working now with FEMA. We agreed to have a deep dive study done over the next 3 months. There's a company called Argonne Consultants that will be sent from the mainland to do that analysis directly, which will look at the impacts of housing and this very unusual but necessary program to pay for short-term rentals at a rate that we can get our people into housing quickly. What I believe they're going to find is that 2,000 or more units need to be built, and that will help justify FEMA support going forward. It will justify the 1,000 units that the mayor, the Senator Schatz, and I have asked for, and it also will provide clear guidance on how many additional units. I'm sure we will need 2,000 units at the very least in the region temporarily. There's also been a lot of work done on permanent housing, and we've been breaking out some graphs. Appreciate Lieutenant Governor did some deep dive this week also on this for us, and we're looking at over 5,000 units that are in the pipeline in the coming years. Long term, we're really going to have to do 2 things. We're going to have to build more housing on Maui, cognizant of water, which is very important, and 2, we're going to have to transition a significant percentage of their 31,000 short-term rentals into the long-term rental inventory. 31,000 short-term rentals, of which many thousands of those are not licensed or legal, need to be transitioned. And we'd like to give a runway of a couple years so that can happen. There's a lot of different scenarios in which we could either raise taxes on short-term rentals or straight up give people an opportunity to sell them. And as you know, we floated a piece of legislation which would give people amnesty from conveyance tax and capital gains tax in Hawaii if they would sell their units now. I'm willing to live up to that, and whether or not that passes as a bill, we can keep coming back and revisiting that. I think that it's going to be difficult to solve all of these questions in this one legislative session, so expect us to either come back for special sessions, or if we have enough breathing room, to come back in the new year again and take up the next phase of the recovery. Housing is at the core of our problems in the state of Hawaii. This fire uncovered a clear truth, which is we have too many short-term rentals owned by too many individuals on the mainland. And it is bullshit, and our people deserve housing here. So I would like them to sell to local owners, or at least rent long-term to our people, so that we can get through these kind of crises.
Our next question will come from Ashley with HPR.
Yeah, probably also for Governor. On the One Ohana Fund, is the goal to spend all $175 million? So, for example, if not as many people take it, would the leftover funds be redistributed into the general fund, or is it redistributed amongst the people who decide to go for a settlement?
So the question is around the $175 million total pot for the One Ohana Fund, and how does that get redistributed if it's not maximized or optimized?
Yeah, thank you for that. I would be very surprised if 100% of people took this option, because some people will find that it's better to litigate. That is absolutely okay. We respect them. Any of the monies that aren't expended would go back to the partners in the proportion that they donated to the fund. So, for example, if 80% of the individuals took advantage of the fund and it left 20% of those funds back, the state would get 20% of its $65 million, which would be $13 million back. HECO would get $15 million back, and so on.
Sorry, quick follow-up. For those who are seriously injured, what kinds of types of compensation are you looking at under 1.5 billion?
That's let me let Judge address that. He has much more experience on these kind of things.
Yeah, it's basically the fund sets aside $25 million of the $175 million to start to compensate those with serious physical injuries. And the process, it would be paying the debt claims first. So $1.5 million will be paid to each debt claimant, and $25 million is reserved for the serious physical injuries. Now, if there are leftover money from the debt claims, then the leftover monies may be used to pay the serious physical injuries up to a cap of $35 million. So 25 plus the 10 additional. That's the cap.
Our next question, Darrell Huff.
Since you first announced this program, Governor, a number of cases on the mainland have gone to jury verdicts, and the verdicts were considerably higher than the $1.5 million. They were in the $4.5 to $8 to $9 million range, and many attorneys are saying this 1.5 is just not going to be as attractive. Have you considered? Was there a process of consideration? Why did you decide to stick with the 1.5, despite that new information coming in about what these wildfire claims tend to be worth?
The question is around the $1.5 million that will be offered and how we came upon that number.
Just a quick clarification. Are you speaking about claims from other fires? Is that, yeah, okay, yeah. So we had some very good analysis from our advisors. In this case, Ken, who has had that kind of experience, and it was viewed at the range somewhere between $750,000 and $1.5 million would likely, in this case, be what would be necessary for people to decide that this was in their interest. And so we chose the high number to be as generous as we could with the amount of funds that came in. And that's why it's really purely an option. It's difficult for me to comment because I could never place a judgment on one of these tragedies, but I do know that everyone has to just have an option in their life. And, if you view I'll just speculate a little bit on what's happened in other places. If you view the process and you imagine people are going to wait several years and then have to deal with appeals, they have to deal perhaps with the possibility that some companies leave the market or are bankrupt, which I don't honestly think will happen. But all of those considerations are also very real. And getting someone resources here in just a few short months, what we're told by some of the individuals who lost a loved one is much more palatable than going through that. But whatever people decide, that will be the right thing for them.
Governor? Our final question comes from Ariel with KITV. Oh, she does not. I will open it up for one final question. Dan Nicasso.
Governor, we've talked a lot about market rental rates on Maui. Where does the offer of $5,000 for a one bedroom, I think it was $11,000 for a four bedroom, fit in what an owner can get right now on the open market?
Okay, so the question is clarification around the breakdown of numbers for market rental rate related to one bedroom, two bedroom, etc.
Sure. 57911.
Yeah, it's the breakdown.
Oh, yeah. So forgive me. Yes. So where do these offers? They break down very favorably. These are comparative to short-term rental rates, and remember, these individuals will also be tax exempt. So the consideration is this: let's say someone owns a two-bedroom short-term rental, and they're used to getting, I don't know, some very large number per night, but they might only rent for 18 nights and they'd pay property tax. In this case, we'll be guaranteeing them the full month coverage, and it's pretty consistent with the market rates. I've also tried to simplify it, as I've, heard some people's stories that, they're reluctant to negotiate. I just want to simplify this process because the complexity of every single case ends up meaning that people end up staying in hotels longer and they wrestle with getting back to normal. I've never seen a problem this complex before, not as a physician, not doing surgery, not fighting it out in the legislature. We're wrestling with people's needs, their trauma, local government, the county level, state government, and the federal government, and very difficult expectations after such loss. And frankly, a lot of states and agencies will turn their back after 6 months or a year, and we don't want that. We really want people to be secured, which is why you're seeing the offer of the One Ohana Fund and why we're trying to get people into a more stable long-term setting. It will be imperfect. I acknowledge some people will feel rushed even after 7 months. Some people will feel hurried by the offer of a settlement. That's why these are options. They're just options for people. But I'm trying to balance the needs of the entire state, which is that we work on our other big challenges like housing and homelessness, healthcare, and so on, with the absolute necessity of caring for Lahaina. You'll hear me talk about some other things that we're going to do in the Lahaina corridor that will be thoughtful about cultural needs in the coming week. And I want people to view this holistically, that we want to care for all the families that were displaced. We want to care certainly for all of those who lost a loved one. And then we have a housing crisis on our hands that just got worse because of the fire. So, when I get animated about short-term rentals like I did a minute ago, it's because we've got 89,000 short-term rentals in the state of Hawaii, of which only 14,000 are legal. That's 75,000 units in our state. They're not available. And if you recall, we've said on multiple occasions, if we had 50,000 units in our state available, our local people wouldn't be pressured to leave. So we have been out of balance. We've been out of balance on housing. We've been out of balance on our protection of the environment. And we've been a little bit out of balance on water policy and cultural considerations for the Hawaiian people. And my intention over these couple years is to restore balance to these challenges. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. See you again in a week.